Hi, everyone. Tonight, we're going to talk about something that creeps up quietly like a mosquito at 2 a.m., numb fingers and shaky legs. You know what I'm talking about. That weird tingling in your hand when you're just holding the remote. Or the jelly leg feeling after standing for 10 minutes at the kitchen sink. Most people shrugged it off. Oh, it's just age, they say. But here's the truth. If you ignore those signs, you probably won't survive the slow loss of mobility. Yeah, I said it. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. And I'd love to know, where are you watching from tonight? Drop your city and local time in the comments. I always check. Now, turn off the lights. Maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise. And let's get started tonight. It started for me one chilly October night. I reached into the fridge to grab a bottle of water, and my fingertips felt fuzzy. Not cold, not painful, just wrong, like someone wrapped them in invisible socks. That night, I couldn't hold my toothbrush properly. I dropped my phone. Twice, I remember thinking, great, I'm turning into a malfunctioning claw machine. I laughed it off until it started happening more often. My legs would buzz while I watched TV. I'd wake up with numb arms. One time, I nearly fell on my way to the bathroom at 3 a.m. No, I hadn't been drinking. Something was off. That's when I stumbled onto a conversation in, of all places, a gardening forum. Someone had posted about nerve issues and how certain vegetables helped them feel human again. I clicked out of curiosity, and that small click might have saved my grip. Turns out, your body sends warnings, and numbness is just the email notification that your nerves and muscles aren't getting what they need. Here's the quirky fact I'll never forget. Astronauts in space, floating around weightless can, experience numbness and loss of strength, even though they're resting. Why? Because their nerves and muscles aren't being fed the right way. Kinda sounds like what happens on Earth too, right? The first veggie on my radar. Leafy greens. But not just any kind. We're talking powerhouse greens, like spinach, Swiss chard, and kale, you see. Most people think vitamins come in bottles. But these leaves, they're full of magnesium, potassium, and natural compounds that literally recharge the nerve signals running from your spine to your toes. The old folks in my hometown used to say, if your hands feel hollow, your belly's too pale. Translation: you're missing green on your plate. Now here's the interesting academic debate. Some experts argue you can't get enough magnesium from food anymore, that you need a supplement. Others insist your gut absorbs nutrients better from whole food than pills. Personally, I choose food first and let my gut do the voting. So I made a deal with myself. 1 handful of greens a day, minimum. Blended, steamed, sautéed, whatever it took. I added them to eggs, stuffed them in sandwiches, even blended them into soups that tasted more like survival than gourmet cuisine. But guess what? My fingers started waking up again. It wasn't magic. It was magnesium. And the best part, I felt more alive in other ways too. Less bloated, fewer leg cramps. I could stand longer in line without swaying like a tree in the wind. I'm not saying spinach turned me into Superman, but if Popeye had neuropathy, he probably knew what he was doing. So, if you've got that weird tingling or your legs feel like they're made of wet cardboard, try adding greens to your next meal. Better yet, plan to eat them tonight. Let them get to work while you sleep. Your hands and feet might just send you a thank you note in the morning. I'll be honest, if there were a popularity contest for vegetables, spinach would probably win by a landslide. But let's not forget its nerdy cousin, magnesium. This little mineral is like the quiet roommate who fixes all your broken stuff and never asks for credit. One night, I was trying to open a jar of tomato sauce. You know that moment when the lid won't budge, and you try everything, grunting, banging it on the counter, running it under hot water like some kind of old ritual. Yeah, that was me. Except my grip was embarrassingly weak. I looked at my own hand like, really? Is this all we've got? That's when I remembered something my aunt used to say, when your muscles whisper, magnesium shouts for them. She was a retired nurse with ankles like steel cables. She swore by her evening bowl of sautéed spinach with garlic and a pinch of sea salt, not for taste, for survival. Turns out, magnesium plays a starring role in muscle contraction, nerve function, and blood sugar control. But as we age, our ability to absorb magnesium declines. It's like trying to fill a bucket that's quietly springing leaks. The quirky bit, magnesium, is also the reason Epsom salts work. That's right, when you soak in a warm Epsom bath, your skin soaks up magnesium sulfate, and your body relaxes like a cat in a sunbeam. So yeah, your grandma was right about that too. Back to the veggies. Spinach is the classic choice. But there's a hidden MVP, Swiss chard. It's like spinach with an attitude. Bold, bitter, and rich in magnesium. Some folks can't handle the taste, but I find that roasting it with a splash of balsamic vinegar makes it oddly addictive. Like salty kale chips, but with benefits. There's an academic tug-of-war going on about how much magnesium we really need. The recommended daily amount is around 400 milligrams for adults, but many experts argue that number is outdated. They point to modern stress levels, processed foods, and poor soil quality as reasons why we might need more, and stress. Oh boy, ever noticed how your leg twitches when you're anxious? That's your magnesium reserves calling in sick. So I made another quiet decision. Leafy greens, twice a day. Morning smoothie, evening sort. Some days I cheat and toss frozen spinach into leftover rice and pretend I cooked. Some days I go full-on chef with a spinach, feta, and walnut salad. The results? No more midnight leg spasms, less numbness in my left hand, and I don't dread pickle jars anymore. Small victories. Here's an old-age wisdom nugget for you. If your hands forget their strength, your food forgot its purpose. I scribbled that into my kitchen notebook next to my magnesium-rich recipe list. It makes me smile every time I see it. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Can't I just take a supplement and call it a day? Sure, you can. But food teaches your body, it teaches your system to absorb, to metabolize, to respond. Supplements are the assistants. Real food, that's the professor dot, and spinach, chard. Even good old beet greens, they're all on the syllabus. So if your muscles feel like overcooked noodles, start with your fork. Add magnesium back into the conversation. Let your body remember what it means to be stable, grounded, and firm again. And hey, bonus fact, magnesium also helps you sleep deeper, which means your body repairs itself better at night. So when I say eat spinach for dinner, I mean you're literally buying better sleep with your fork. Now, if spinach is the quiet genius, then broccoli is the overachiever nobody appreciates until it's gone. Yeah, I said it. Broccoli gets a bad rap. People wrinkle their noses like it personally insulted their cooking. But this chunky little tree has been doing heavy lifting in your body long before you gave it credit. I used to steam it, salt it, and pretend I liked it. These days, I roast it until it's crispy on the edges, drizzle a bit of lemon, and add a whisper of Parmesan. Suddenly, I'm not just eating vegetables, I'm enjoying them, but flavor aside, broccoli belongs here because of one thing: sulforaphane. Say that 10 times fast. This compound, found in cruciferous vegetables, helps reduce inflammation in nerves and blood vessels, two of the biggest culprits behind numbness and weakness. And get this, some studies suggest sulforaphane helps activate protective enzymes in your brain and muscles. It's like giving your body a little bodyguard that patrols for damage. I remember reading that in one article and going, broccoli's basically Batman. Okay then, the problem is, when you're over 60, inflammation isn't just something you feel, it's silent. It builds up, like dust in the attic. You don't see it until one day, your legs feel like lead and your fingers won't do what they're told. And let me tell you about that attic. I was helping my niece move once. Well, I said I'd help hand. I tried to lift a small box of books. Big mistake. My knees wobbled like overcooked jello. My brain screamed, abort. And I had to play it cool like I just needed to reposition. We both knew that's when I doubled down on broccoli. And not just broccoli. Brussels, sprouts, cauliflower, cabbage, the whole cruciferous family. If it looked like a vegetable wearing armor, I ate it. Here's a quirky fact for you. Brussels sprouts were so unpopular in the 1990s that Dutch scientists literally bred a less bitter version to win people back. That's right, Brussels sprouts had a comeback story. I love that. There's hope for all of us. Anyway, adding these veggies to your meals isn't just about nerve health. They're loaded with vitamin C, vitamin K, and folate nutrients that help keep your brain sharp and your muscles quick to respond. Now, there's a hot academic debate happening in nutrition circles. Is it better to eat these vegetables raw or cooked? Raw means more vitamin C, but cooked means you absorb more sulforaphane and other antioxidants. My answer, why choose? Do both, a little raw salad here, some roasted florets there. Let your taste buds mix it up. Sometimes I even chop up leftover broccoli and toss it into scrambled eggs the next morning. Not fancy, but my body thanks me, especially my legs. No more wobbles on staircases. No more embarrassing fumbles in front of family. Here's a little old age gem. I heard once, eat the tough stuff if you want to stay tough. Broccoli might not melt in your mouth, but it definitely helps keep you from melting down. And to anyone thinking, this sounds like too much broccoli, I get it. But the trick is variety. Rotate with cauliflower, toss in some purple cabbage, throw Brussels into your air fryer. Don't treat veggies like punishment. Treat them like allies. Because when you're over 60, strength doesn't come from the gym, it comes from the grocery store. The sooner you accept that, the sooner your legs and hands will stop rebelling. And I don't know about you, but I'm done negotiating with my limbs. If you've stuck with me this far, get ready because we're heading into zinc territory. Not exactly sexy, I know. Zinc sounds like something you'd find in a toolbox or maybe a spaceship. But hear me out, when it comes to rebuilding nerve endings and fighting off leg fatigue, this mineral is your undercover agent. I didn't know much about zinc until my hands started playing tricks on me. Buttons became enemies. Shoelaces might as well have been calculus. It wasn't pen, it was slowness, like the messages from my brain had to swim through peanut butter before reaching my fingers. So, I did what any confused adult would do. I Googled it. That led me to zinc, and zinc led me to green peas. Yeah, green peas. The tiny, polite vegetable that no one gets excited about. You've probably pushed them around your plate for years without realizing they're zinc-packed nuggets of recovery. They also sneak in vitamin B6 and folate, basically a nerve system repair. Crew in disguise. But peas aren't the only source. Asparagus is another zinc-rich gem, and it's fancy enough to make your plate look like you tried, even if all you did was steam it with olive oil and lemon juice. There's a quirky study from the 70s that linked zinc deficiency with a diminished sense of taste in seniors. Basically, if your food starts tasting like cardboard, your nerves might be waving a little white flag. And as weird as it sounds, zinc also plays a role in testosterone production, which, regardless of gender, supports muscle strength and bone density. So yappies for power. People, here's the fun, off-topic fact I stumbled across while researching zinc. Oysters are the king of zinc-rich foods. But I'm not telling you to go slurping shellfish before bed unless you're hosting a seafood rave for one. Instead, stick with peas, asparagus, chickpeas, or even pumpkin seeds. More digestible, less slippery. Of course, as with everything, there's a debate. Do seniors really need more zinc than what's already in a balanced diet? Some experts say yes, especially since zinc absorption can be reduced by medications, like acid blockers and blood pressure pills. Others argue the risk of zinc overdose is real and that we're better off with food-based sources than pills. And this is where I step in not as a doctor, but as a friend. I say go for food first, always. Your body's more likely to take what it needs and ditch the rest, without the risk of going overboard. Now, back to peas. I started mixing them into soups, adding them to mashed potatoes, and even throwing them into my omelets. And asparagus. That became my go-to side dish anytime. I didn't feel like thinking too hard. Within a few weeks, I noticed I wasn't fumbling with zippers anymore. I could button my coat without breaking into a sweat. And there was this one moment, just me, my morning paper, and a pencil, and I realized I hadn't dropped it once. That felt good. Here's an old saying. I made up, when your hands remember their grip, your mind remembers its worth. Zinc didn't change everything overnight, but it gave my nerves the fuel they needed to do their job. That's worth a pea or two. So next time someone calls peas boring, just smile and tell them your legs and hands say otherwise. And asparagus. That's your green spear of nerve revival. Don't underestimate it. Let's talk about something weirdly magical. Sweet potatoes. Yeah, those orange, starchy, oddly shaped root vegetables that look like they've been through a few emotional breakdowns. But don't let appearances fool you. If you're over 60 and looking to say goodbye to weak legs and tingling fingers, sweet potatoes are like edible rehab. Now, I didn't grow up eating sweet potatoes. We had the regular white kind, boiled, mashed, fried to death, you name it. Sweet potatoes. That was holiday food. Something Aunt Carol burnt every Thanksgiving. But recently, I gave them a second chance. And my legs basically applauded. Why? Potassium, my friend, you see. Your nerves and muscles rely on electrical signals to function, little zaps of energy firing off like messages down a telephone wire. Potassium helps regulate those zaps. When you're low on potassium, your muscles misfire, your legs feel shaky, and your hands might go numb just from holding a coffee mug too long. And here's the kicker. As you age, your kidneys might not regulate potassium as efficiently, especially if you're on certain meds, which means you need to be even more intentional about getting it. Now, I know the common potassium superstar is the banana, and bananas are great, but sweet potatoes, they've got more potassium, plus fiber, plus beta-carotene, which your body converts into vitamin A, a key player in nerve health and immune defense. Think of sweet potatoes as the overachiever in a turtleneck sweater. Modest, but brilliant. And if you're like me and get bored easily, good news. Sweet potatoes are culinary chameleons. I bake them into wedges. I mash them with cinnamon and a splash of almond milk. One time, I even turned them into pancakes. Not great pancakes, but the effort was there. Here's a quirky fact. In Japan, roasted sweet potatoes are sold from trucks, like ice cream for adults. Can you imagine walking down the street, hearing a jingle, and instead of getting a cone, you get a warm, steamy yam? That's the kind of world I want to live in. Now. There's an ongoing academic back and forth about glycemic load and whether sweet potatoes raise blood sugar too much. It's a fair concern, especially for seniors with diabetes or insulin resistance. But the answer, like most things in nutrition, is context. If you eat sweet potatoes alongside fiber-rich greens or protein, you slow the absorption. That means no sugar roller coaster. Plus, the natural sugars in sweet potatoes are balanced by all the fiber and antioxidants they bring along for the ride. A few weeks into my sweet potato phase, I noticed something curious. Fewer leg cramps. The kind that used to shoot through my calf at 2 a.m. and turn me into a screaming statue. Gone, or at least rare enough that I stopped sleeping with my feet at a 90-degree angle. And when your legs don't wake you up in the middle of the night, your mornings change. You rise softer. You move with less creaking and more confidence. Here's a little old age gem. Someone told me at a community dinner, eat with your future self in mind. And that night, as I spooned roasted sweet potato into my bowl like it was gold, I got it. So, if you're tired of weak limbs and weird tingles, and you're ready to swap doubt for strength, put sweet potatoes in your cart next time. Just make sure you roast them till the edges are crisp and caramelized. That's the magic bite. I never thought I'd say this, but kale made me cry. Okay, not really cry, but the kind of internal weeping that happens when you realize you've ignored something amazing for decades, because you thought it tasted like punishment. Kale's bean. That vegetable everyone on the internet has tried to convince us is so good for you while also posting recipes to make it taste less like wet paper. But listen, when it comes to nerve recovery and leg strength, kale doesn't just talk the talk. It's a full-blown performance artist. Why? One word: magnesium. Magnesium is the mineral equivalent of a therapist, a construction worker, and a DJ, calming your nerves, rebuilding muscle tissue, and keeping your internal rhythms steady. As we get older, magnesium deficiency becomes sneaky common. Not because we don't eat it, but because our bodies get less efficient at absorbing it. I found this out the hard way. I had these odd tremors in my hands, tinny shakes that made me look nervous even when I wasn't, and I started getting restless legs at night. The kind that made me kick like a sleepwalking flamenco dancer. Then I discovered kale. Not in a green juice, thank you very much, but sautéed in garlic and olive oil with a sprinkle of sesame seeds. And suddenly, my legs were calmer. My hands steadied. I wasn't perfect, but something inside me had unclenched. Of course, kale isn't the only magnesium MVP. Spinach, Swiss chard, and even avocados pulled their weight. But kale, Kale is the gritty underdog, the retired boxer with a garden. It's not trying to charm you, it just works. Here's a weird fact for you. Ancient Romans used kale as both food and medicine. They believed it hardened the body and improved stamina. Makes sense, considering kale contains not just magnesium but also vitamin K, which supports bone density, a detail often ignored until you fall trying to put on a sock. And speaking of vitamin K, did you know there's a tiny academic squabble around it? The debate is whether vitamin K, to the kind you get from fermented foods, is superior to K1 found in kale. The jury's still out. But one thing's for sure, any vitamin K helps reduce the risk of fractures by improving calcium balance, which, if your legs are shaky or your hands lose grip, becomes really important. The truth is, I used to roll my eyes at kale lovers. Now, I nod respectfully when I pass it in the grocery store. I even whisper thank you if no one's looking. Here's what I do now. I prep kale at the beginning of the week. I massage it with lemon juice. I massage my salad like it's at a spand. Toss it with roasted seeds or chickpeas. Some nights I throw it into soup. Other times, I blend it into pesto. It's surprisingly versatile when you stop trying to make it into chips. And I've noticed something subtle but steady. I no longer get that dead leg sensation after sitting too long. My calves don't feel like bricks. I can climb stairs with a touch more bounce, just enough to feel proud, but not enough to make a TikTok about it. An old lady at my walking group once told me, "Greens are the glow of the earth. Eat them, and you glow too." It sounded woo-woo at the time, but these days, I think she was onto something. So yes, kale made me cry, but also helped me feel stronger, calmer, more like myself in a body that doesn't always cooperate. And if that's not a reason to add a handful of dark greens to your dinner plate tonight, I don't know what is. Now we've reached the final vegetable in my nerve and leg saving lineup, and it might surprise you, it's beets. I know, beets. They stain your fingers, they smell a bit like dirt, and if you're not careful, they make your cutting board look like a crime scene. But don't underestimate them. Beets are what I'd call a sleeper hit. Quiet, misunderstood, but absolutely powerful. What's so special about them? Nitrates. Natural nitrates in beets get converted into nitric oxide in your body, which helps open up blood vessels, improve circulation, and increase oxygen delivery to muscles and nerves. In other words, better blood flow to your legs and hands. And when your blood flows better, your limbs wake up. That numbness, that weakness, it starts to fade. Now, before you panic and think I'm asking you to eat raw beet salad every night, which tastes like chewing on a garden hose, I'm here too. Roasted beets are a game changer. Caramelized, tender, slightly sweet. Toss them in olive oil and rosemary, and you'll forget you're eating a root. Here's a quirky fact. In the 19th century, beets were used to make wine. Yes, wine. Because people will ferment anything if given the chance and a bit of boredom. And it kind of makes sense. Beets have natural sugars and an earthy depth. Just don't expect to see a beet noir at your next dinner party. And now for the academic wrinkle. There's some back and forth in the medical field over how effective dietary nitrates really are in improving endurance and muscle function in older adults. Some studies suggest immediate benefits. Others show more gradual improvements. But across the board, they agree beets support blood pressure and vascular health, which is foundational to everything from memory to muscle control. And here's my personal evidence. I went through a phase where I added beetroot powder to my smoothies every morning. It wasn't glamorous, and it turned everything hot pink. But within a week or two, I noticed fewer pins and needles episodes in my toes, especially after sitting at my desk. Even better, I felt more energetic during my evening walks. Not like I could run a marathon, but enough to climb that steep hill behind the grocery store without pausing for breath or silently bargaining with gravity. An old friend of mine, Jack, 72 years young, and still hiking every Sunday, swears by beet juice. Says it lubricates the legs. Not a medical term, but you get the point. His logic: anything that helps the blood move helps me move. So here's how I do it now. I roast a batch of beets once a week. Some go into salads, some I slice cold and eat with hummus. If I'm feeling fancy, I'll blend them into a warm beet soup with garlic and thyme. Once, I even grated them into a chocolate cake recipe. Didn't tell anyone. They just said it was moist and mysterious. And that's the magic of beets. They sneak health in while you're not looking. You've made it through 7 parts, and if you're still here, I hope your fridge looks different now. Less beige, more vibrant, more alive. If your hands have been tingling, if your legs feel heavy, or if you're just tired of waking up with that dull, disconnected feeling in your limbs, don't wait for a miracle drug. Sometimes the fix is growing right in the dirt. You just have to cook it. Now that we've walked through all 8 vegetables, I hope you feel a little more empowered and a little more grounded. The path to strength and clarity doesn't have to come in a bottle or prescription. It can start with a cutting board, a handful of greens, and the quiet hum of your kitchen fan. Let food remind you that healing can be simple, joyful, and even delicious. And as you drift off tonight, picture your hands steady, your legs strong, and your body grateful for the care you've given it. Good night.